For today, I'm just going to go over how you get started on Microsoft Access or the Develop Simple Databases unit. And so we're going to start with Blackboard. So on the My Path window, I'm simply going to click on Blackboard Learn. And from here, I'm going to, of course, select courses on the left side on my menu and then go into the class from there. So courses. From the list of courses, what we do is select our course, CIT 105 5582 4162, Intro to Computers. Now I'm going to get into student preview mode so that you can see how to do everything from your perspective. So in the main course content area, you have Start Here, that was week 1. Practice Computing Basics is week 2. And for Develop Simple Databases, we're going to spend 2 weeks on this unit. And so basically what a database is a storage container, okay, where we store data and we sort through the data to get information. So, how we sort through the information is by creating queries. Now, you've already done queries before, and you just didn't know that you were doing queries. Okay, so when you go out to, say, for instance, google.com, and you type in the search box something for um, something that you need. Okay. So let's say I want to search on Jefferson Community and Technical College. We see this list here that appears. And that list is called an autocomplete list. And what that's doing is it is sending basically sending a message to um, Google that you're wanting to pull this particular data, okay? And what this list is doing is saying, okay, here's the data. Here's the most um, searched results on what you're typing in. So this is an autocomplete list. Now you also have and have been having for years an autocomplete list in Microsoft Excel, for example. So let me pull up Excel, go to the start menu, and I'm just going to go through the alphabetic list here, and I'm going to select Excel. Okay. When I select Excel, that launches the Excel application. So when the Excel application actually comes up and I'm able to get into a worksheet, that's what, a blank spreadsheet in Excel is called a worksheet. Okay. Um, so I'm just going to use escape here so that I can get right in to a blank um, worksheet. Okay. So if I was to type in the equal sign in Excel, and although this is about databases, you'll get to see some of the similarities between a spreadsheet program like Excel and a database program like Microsoft Access. Okay. So if I typed in the equal sign and a letter, okay, and I'm just going to type the letter A, okay, automatically you have this autocomplete list. And what this autocomplete list does is it's showing you, based upon the letter that you typed in, what functions are already built into Microsoft Excel's library of functions. Okay. And so if I was to type in an S, then all of the functions that have the letter S actually come up on this autocomplete list. Okay. So, very similar to what's happening with Google. Okay. When you go to type in Jefferson Community and Technical College and it actually comes up on the list, you can then stop typing and go to the list and actually select it. Then what it does is it gives you back those results. And so when it gives you back those results, what you've done is you've completed a query. You've narrowed down a search for specific keywords, okay, using Google's form. And you're saying, Google, search all of your databases, all of your tables, and find me this information. So once you've done that, you see that it gives you about 17,400,000 results. Okay. Same thing would happen in an Access database. Okay. So, of course, it would give you all of the results here, on a sort of user friendly page. It has pictures and all of that. Access is not going to give you the results in that particular format, but you can kind of see or imagine the the results. Okay, it's going to give it to you kind of, and it's going to look like the table um, that you're searching through with a query. So let me go ahead and close out of this. And so before I get into Microsoft Access, let me tell you that Microsoft Access is not a database. Okay. And you might be like, well, if it's not a database, then why would we develop simple databases? Well, Microsoft Access is much more than just a database. It is a database management system, meaning that it basically gives you the ability to create databases, okay, that you can use either in a solo, like on a solo machine, or in a networked environment, or you could create completely standalone applications, that are separate from Microsoft Access. So that's what makes it more than a database. It's a database management system where you can create different types of files to do different types of things that are database related. Okay. So once you get into number 3, develop databases, you click on that and you see your instructional documents. And I'm just going to go into the module introduction so that we could learn, why would we want to develop simple databases? For what purpose would we want? So this is sort of setting up the tone for you to understand the whole point behind databases. What is the big deal, and why are we learning this in an intro to computers class? In short, everything we do today is database driven. Okay, so you'll hear me sort of using database or database interchangeably. Just know it's the same thing. For certain situations, I may refer to it as a database, and others I may refer to it as a database. Okay, to emphasize data, because that's really the whole point, is to house data. Okay, so it's extremely important that you understand how to not only use a database, but also create one from scratch. And basically, because everywhere you go today, in our civilized, quote unquote, civilized society, there's some sort of database operating and helping humans to make decisions. For example, when you go to the gas station, each gas pump and each cash register is database driven. So, how can we assume that this is true? Well, each gas pump has a credit card reader for you to insert your credit or debit card, right? And many gas pumps also have a kiosk, basically some kind of slideshow that has an endless loop that's advertising some kind of product to you, okay, product or service. They're marketing, just like what happens on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, um, and all of the other social platforms that you're on. Okay. But, maybe you stop for gas, but they're going to make sure that, they get you on the inside. Okay. So they may have some kind of, chocolatey snack or peanut buttery snack. Okay. And if they show it on screen, they know that us humans and our monkey brains, meaning that it's very difficult for us to um, you know, stay focused, we definitely will, say, oh, yeah, I'd like a snack or a drink, okay, or even tobacco products. So just thinking of that little simple example, okay, but there are tons more examples out there of how our society has sort of morphed into using databases on the regular. Okay. So, how would I know that? Well, if you scroll through and see all of the things that you're going to be responsible for doing, okay, on here, there's also another instructional document that really goes into it more deeply. And you get to see how, and I forget which one it is, but you get to see how databases are sort of interwoven into everything that we do. Okay. And so let's see here. I think it's the importance of databases. Okay. So everything that you use today, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. Okay, these are just streaming media, but social media, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. If you use any kind of rideshare services, Lyft, Uber, okay, and some of these probably living in Louisville, Kentucky, you've never heard of before, but they are happening all over the country. Wings, Curb, Via, or Scoop. Um, there are other kinds of search engines too, other than Google. Okay, not a lot of people know this, but there are private um, search engines, okay, such as DuckDuckGo, meaning that it does not track what you search for on their site, whereas Google.com does. Okay, but Microsoft has a search engine, it's called Bing. Google has another kind of search engine that deals only with scholarly works, and that is Google Scholar. Of course, Yahoo's been around even before Google came along. Um, but all of these things, if you can see here, DirecTV, um, AT&T Uverse, Spectrum TV, okay, um, Google Maps, Apple Maps, um, BestBuy.com, Walmart.com, Amazon.com, okay, your Gmail, your Yahoo Mail, maybe you have a Hotmail account. All of these things that we have been using for years and years and years would not be possible if there was not a database The database tracks you as a user of these services. It tracks what you do, what you purchase, and all of that. Okay, so anything that tracks your activities, um, for example, a local example here in Louisville, Kentucky, LG&E, Louisville Gas and Electric. Okay, well, they track how much, you know, gas or electricity you use in your home. So does that mean that they have a database that's driving everything? It sure does. So you can kind of see the implication here. Every bank, every credit union, um, every store you go into, if they have a barcode reader, they have a database, and that database tracks the barcode, so that the manager will know when it's time to reorder certain products. It tracks the price. It tracks things that have walked out of the store, um, that has not been necessarily purchased. Okay, so they know when things have been stolen. Okay, um, and it's all database driven. Okay, so that's what you're going to do for this unit. You are going to create um, a database using Microsoft Access, okay, which is a database management system. And you're going to create the database, and then inside of the database, you are going to be responsible for creating objects in that database. The main number one object in the database, just like your Windows software or your operating system is the main software on your computer. It matters. Um, if you don't have a table in a database, it matters because the table is what holds all of the data or data. Okay. And so if you don't have data, of course, you can't present the data in a report. You can't search through the data using a query. Okay. So we have to, of course, first learn the terms. And I sort of give you these terms up front. You definitely want to read through the instructional materials, because that's going to help you. And if you can kind of imagine the instructional materials being me saying these things to you in a live session. Of course, we don't have a whole lot of time on our live sessions, so it's sort of paramount that you read through the instructional materials, take notes on anything that's new, and then you're off to, completing your activities on SimNet. Now, on SimNet, the activities are very similar to what you went through in the Practice Computing Basics unit, where you read the textbook page and then there's a Let Me Try. Now, in this unit, this starts, the area of the class where you not only have the sort of textbook page and the Let Me Try, but now you have a, a, a Show Me, which is basically a video showing you what the entire page is talking about, or is leading up to, but you're still responsible for reading that page, right? Um, but they have some activity that they want you to do in the Let Me Try. So from reading the page, you should be able to complete the activity on the Let Me Try. Okay, reading the page, taking notes. But if you need some extra help, then the Show Me is there for you, to help you along. It's a video. It's a very short video that shows you, you know, your database screen. It shows you how to create a table, how to set up fields in a table, things like that. Okay. So it's showing you specifically what you're going to accomplish in that Let Me Try. Then you also have what is called a Guide Me. So it's kind of like an in between of the Show Me and the Let Me Try. And excuse me, but it helps you along. So it confirms with you if you've done things correctly on screen so that you'll know that you're on track to doing it correctly. Um, but again, the Let Me Try is like that as well. You have unlimited attempts on each Let Me Try. So you could practice it multiple times and, become more familiar with it. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, of course, we're going to be on Microsoft on the develop simple databases or on the Microsoft Access unit for a couple of weeks. Okay, because this is probably the most difficult component of the course, and one of the reasons why I want to um, bring it up at the beginning of the class. I know this is week 3, right? 3 of 8. I want to bring it up at the beginning because I don't want you to stress out about it. I want you to be able to go through it, be able to ask your questions, and, just be more mindful. Take your time and actually go through it. Okay. So it's going to be due on Sunday, August the 8th. So today it is July 27th, Tuesday, July 27th, technically our first day with this unit. And so, of course, other students in your class have already started with this particular unit in, Access Chapter 1, but just kind of giving you a heads up what's going to sort of happen on Sunday, August the 8th. All right. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open up Microsoft Access so that I can give you somewhat of a review of Microsoft Access without going into the SimNet, simulated environment. I'm going to take you right into the real thing. Okay. So let me close that. And then I'm going to come down to my taskbar and click on the Start button. Okay. And it should be under the A's. Okay. It's like a little cylindrical, like a little maroon cylinder with a white A on it. And so it says Access. So you should be able to just click on it. If you don't see it on your list of applications, that means that you still need to download the software. All right. And you need to check your class syllabus to download the software. Okay. Just as simple as that. All right. So I'm going to use Escape here to get right into Microsoft Access. Okay. And so I don't have a database created yet. All right. So Access is the only application in the Microsoft 365 suite of applications that requires you to save the file first. Okay. So we're going to start a file from scratch. So we just simply go to File. Okay. And it already comes up to New. And of course, it's morning, right? So I'm just going to click on Blank Database. Okay. Blank database is the same as a blank document or a blank worksheet or a blank presentation. Okay. But the only difference is it has you to give it a file name up front. Okay. Now, the good thing about this is when you actually save a file in Access, you never have to save the file again. Okay. You save the database file once and that's it. Okay. Now, the objects that you create inside of the database, like tables, queries, forms, and reports, you have to save those, but you'll never have to save the database file again. Okay, so you save that up front. So I'm just going to give it a name here instead of database 4. I'm just going to let's say give it the name of, let's say, just sample database. Okay. Now, just below it, you see where it's going to actually save it to. That's saying it's going to save it on my C drive, meaning on my computer's hard drive, in the users area, in the SJCO folder, and then, of course, in the documents folder. Okay, so SJCO is the name of my computer, basically. That's what I gave it when I set up Windows. Okay, now you can change that address or that path to save files to simply by clicking on that little folder there. Okay, so if you click on the folder, it basically tells your computer to open your computer, okay, so that you can see the file structure. So this PC, if I wanted to save it on this PC, I could choose to save it to desktop or documents. That's typically where things go when you're creating something from scratch. Now, if I wanted to save it on my OneDrive KCTCS, I could just scroll up to see that, and then I could find a folder that I actually wanted to save it to if I wanted to do that. Okay. Or I could create a new folder and give it a name for this specific project or class and store it in there. So I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and it should be down here because it's under this PC. Now, I will save things to desktop just basically to make it more available to me. Um, Sometimes, we get distracted. Again, our monkey brains, right? Um, we get distracted with things, and sometimes with all of my years of experience and knowledge of computers, I will still forget where I saved something to. So the desktop is safe. So sometime during the semester, you'll see that my desktop has a load of stuff on it. Eventually, I'll create a folder, or put it in its proper place. But the desktop, because I see it when I turn my computer on, is probably, best for me because I'm easily distracted as well. So I'm just going to click on OK here because it's got up here this PC and desktop. So I'm going to click OK. And we're going to see down here that it's still on my C drive or my hard drive on my computer. It's, of course, under my user account and in the desktop area. Okay, and it's going to be sample database. Now we see that .accdb after it. That is the file extension from Microsoft Access. Okay, ACC, of course, stands for access, and then DB means database. Okay, so we click on create here, and it gets us inside of Microsoft Access. And the very first thing that we see, okay, it's blank, but it's table one. Okay. And so this is like document one, presentations one, um, book one in Excel. Okay. Same thing, but it's in Access. And the reason that table comes up first is you have to have a data source, a source where all of your data resides. So here is, you could either set up the table from, this is considered data sheet view. And if you click on the little protractor, little button arrow down here, view, you see that the one that has the square around it, that is the current one that is being used. So this is data sheet view. Data sheet view in Access looks almost exactly like Microsoft Excel, okay, with columns and rows. Okay. And then design view is also here. And I learned in undergrad when Microsoft Access was at the first version, 1.0. I remember it. I learned to set up a table in design view. Okay. And so that is what's, I guess, near and dear to my heart. But on um, on SimNet has you to set it up on, in datasheet view. It's your choice. Okay. So I'm just going to click on design view and show you a contrast, okay, between how SimNet has you to set it up and how you have another option. Okay, so I'm going to give the table a name. Remember, I told you that you never have to save the database file again, but any object that you create, tables, queries, forms, or reports, you have to give it a name and save it. Okay, so I'm just going to give it, something generic like members. Would be my members table. And I'm going to use TBL for short, okay, just to signify that it's a table. Click OK. And it's going to take me into what is called design view of the table. So anytime you get into um, a table, okay, it's going to automatically start you off with a field that is unique, okay, and most often that field would be an ID field like you have with campus solutions, PeopleSoft Campus Solutions. um, when you get your student account at Jefferson, you're automatically assigned a student ID number. Okay. And that is because Jefferson's or PeopleSoft Campus Solutions is a database, right? It stores student data, it stores employee data. Okay. So, and basically what that means is that this field is going to be unique for every member. Okay. Now, I could create a completely new field, such as if I wanted to, instead of student, I could say member ID. Okay. Um, and I could get rid of ID altogether, which I'm going to do. But we see that auto number is automatically selected for the ID field. Now, the reason that is because it has to be unique. So each time a record is created, it has to be unique. Okay, and you see this little key over here in the row selector area to the left of ID, and that is a primary key indicator. And a primary key just says this field on every record has to be unique. Okay, so as I said, I can make member ID um, the new primary key just by selecting member ID. Okay. And go over here to, well, I got to give it a data type first. So let's just leave it at short text. And then when I do that, then the primary key button becomes available. So I could select it there, and you see how the key moved from the ID field to the member ID field. So here I could just select the record selector, use the right click on my mouse, and then select delete rows. So ID is gone. Okay. So now member ID is going to be my primary key. Okay. That means that for every record in this table, the member ID has to be unique, kind of like a student ID. Okay. So what do we track on members? We track their first name. Okay. And I'm going to leave it as short text. Maybe we track their middle initial. Okay. I'm going to leave that as short text. And I'm just tabbing through. Okay. After I type in the field name. And then, of course, last name. Tab through, keep it all the same. What else kind of information would you need on a member? Such as street address, maybe? Okay. What about city, state, postal code? And I'm going to put zip in parentheses if it lets me. It may not once I go to save it. So just be cognizant of that. It doesn't necessarily um, like extra characters. Access is a little weird. Um, Then we might want a telephone number on a member. Okay. So, although a telephone number is technically numbers, right? The dashes or hyphens in between the numbers makes it more than numbers. Typically, you only want to use a number data type when you're going to use that field that contains the number in some sort of calculation. And so for a phone number, we don't use a calculation. Okay. Um, what else for a member could we track? And when I say member, I'm thinking Sam's Club membership, Costco membership, stuff like that. Okay. So, but we could put anything that we want to track. Okay. Um, we could track um, last access. Okay. Basically, the last time they used the membership. Um, we could track any amounts owed. Okay. Amount owed. Okay. Now, when you deal with amounts, right, of course, we know that that's more than just text, right? We know that's going to be dollars and cents or money. Okay. So you can click on this little drop down arrow and get a list of them. And there's currency, which basically means money. Okay. So for that field. So telephone number, of course, can have its own field too, instead of just short text. So for this one, we would have to actually click on Lookup Wizard. Okay. Well, we'll keep it short text. And then down here, we'll do Input Mask, which it's going to give us a little wizard to go through. And it tells you here, we must save the table first. Save now? Yes. So you click yes, and then it gives you the list. So we're looking for telephone numbers. So we see phone number there, and it's kind of like in the format that we would normally see a phone number, right? So we just click, it's already selected. So we just click next, and we tell it how we want the phone number to look. Just keep it like that. And then here it says with the symbols in the mask or without the symbols, and it tells you how it's going to look. So we want the one with the symbols because we want the parentheses around the area code. Okay. Click next and click finish. Okay. So it's still short text, but it's going to be formatted like a phone number. Okay. The same thing with postal or zip code. Okay. Keep it short text, but go to the input mask here, and the little three dots or ellipsis, must save table first, yes, and we're going to choose zip code. Click next, next, and we want it with the symbols. Next and finish. Okay. Now, state is a little different. Remember that when you track a state, okay, for a member or a student, um, just think if you're going to mail something out to someone, that state has to be two characters, okay? And so each state in the United States has a two character abbreviation for that state. So for Kentucky, it's KY. For Indiana, it's IN. Okay. For um, Washington State, it's WA. Okay. California, it's CA. Things like that. So you can still keep this short text, right? But down here in the field properties pane, instead of 255 characters, we're just going to limit it to two. So we're going to get rid of both of these fives. So, and the field size will be just two. So it will prevent someone from trying to type in or spell out Kentucky, and all how many ever digits it is, or spell out Indiana with all of the letters of that state's name. Okay. You can also use this field properties pane, say for instance, default value. So let's say most of your members are from the state of Kentucky. Okay. What you can do for default value is type in KY. Okay. Because that's where most of your customers are going to reside. All right. And you don't want to have to type KY 10,000 times. Okay. For all of your customers. So you could put it in the default value section and voila, it will appear. You can tab through it and it's already typed. You don't have to worry about typing it. Okay. What about middle initial? So middle initial is typically, one letter. Um, or sometimes it could be one letter and a period. Okay, so we're just going to leave it at 2. So we're going to come down to the field properties pane. We first have to select middle initial. And then the field properties pane, we're going to leave it at 2 for the letter and a period. Okay, and that's optional. Um, and so I think we're ready to see what this table is going to look like. We've created it in design view. So now we want to look at it in datasheet view or view that looks like columns and rows. Now, this description field on each field name, it says it's optional. So we can actually, put something there if we wanted to tell a user how to, or what we want them to put in there. Okay, so like for middle initial, we could say type the initial and a period. Okay. And then in parentheses, you could give them an example. For example, E period. Okay. Let me close the parentheses. Okay. What about state? We could actually spell it out for them. 2-character abbreviation. Okay. Postal code. That's fine. Telephone number. Um, I guess it would be the three numbers for the area code and then the 7 digits. So we could actually spell it out. 10 number. Um, and then parentheses include area code. Okay, so they'll know what to input there. Okay. And so we're ready to save. Now you could use any keyboard shortcut, Control S to save. You could also use on the quick launch toolbar in the top left corner, the save button. Okay. So either one will do. And then what we want to do now is look at the data sheet view. So now that we've saved it, we can go to the view little drop down and select data sheet view. Okay. Or we could close it, which will take us back to our navigation area for our table, and so that we can see what we've created. Okay. So if we click on the X next to the members table, it closes the members table. And now we see on our navigation bar, how do I know that this is our navigation bar or navigation pane? If I completely click that shutter bar open close button, it shows us here navigation pane. So it shows us how to navigate inside of the database. Okay, so there's members table. We can double click. If you double click on it, it automatically opens up in datasheet view. Okay, so now you can see that we're collecting information, basically a row or a record of data on members. Okay, so for each member, the member would have to have a unique ID. They would have to have a first name, middle initial, last name, etc. Okay, so before we do put anything on there, I want to go ahead and create a form, because a form inside of a database is like what you get with google.com, that open text box. um, that's considered an online form, right? And so you want to create forms in a database so that a user can interact really well with the data that's in the table. Okay, so in order to make a form that is going to feed into a table, you first have to select the table. Okay. Then you go over here on your tabs next to home and you select create. When you click create, you get to see what all that's possible for you to create. And I want to create a form. Okay. Now, there are several different types of forms that you can create. And of course, there are even more forms that you could create. But I'm just going to select the first one here. The first one is just an auto form, and it lets you input data one record at a time. Okay, so I'm just going to select that one. It's going to use all of the fields that appear in the members table. Okay, so we see all of the fields, and we even see the one that we did the default value on. You see how it automatically has Kentucky in there, or KY? So that's exactly what we want. So automatically in Access, it automatically shows us the fields that appear in the table. So we don't need that. We can close it. And then we have our members form, but it's showing members TBL because it came from the members table. All right. So what we want to do is give it a new name. Okay. So we want to save changes to the form. Click yes, and it's going to prompt us to give it a new name. So I'm just going to keep it members there, but I'm just going to change the TBL to FRM. Okay, so because it'll be a separate entity. Okay, so click on OK, and now we see that we've got a table and a form. Okay, so when I double click on the members FRM, it gives me the ability to input specific unique information. Now, when I say unique, say for instance you have two John Smiths, okay, that are members. The only way that you're going to be able to tell the difference between those is, of course, a member ID, and most companies will ask you for your social security number too when you become a member or when you have a bill with them, like LG&E or the water company. Okay, so I'm just going to, type in just a random number. Let's see, that's 6, 7. Let's try 9. Okay, just random number. And I'm going to put first name here, John R. Period Smith. Um, I'm making up these addresses, um, so we're going to make it in Louisville. Skip over KY because it's already there, and then 40218, and we can leave off the end of the postal code. And then I'm going to give it, just a generic little telephone number. You see how the dashes and the parentheses was already there. I just typed in the numbers. Okay. And last access, or last time they used their membership, and we're going to put that as today. So 7/27. Okay. Now, you may not have noticed it, but on a form, everything that we typed in the description area for certain fields now appears um, on the screen. Okay, so it appears on our status bar. where we see form view. Now watch, I'm going to go to the state. Do we see down there that it says 2-character abbreviation? Okay. So it's basically telling the user what they need to type into this field. Okay. What about the phone number? There it is. 10 numbers, include the area code. Okay. So you're giving instructions in the description of, in the design view of a table. Okay. Um, which other one did we? I think that may have been it. Telephone. Well, middle initial. There was the other one. So it says on the status bar, type the initial and a period. Okay. So, and that's optional, but it is helpful for a user. So whenever you create a database, you want to try to be as helpful to not just yourself using it, but just the thought that someone else might use it, right? So, all right. So this is going to be the first record that we're going to create in that table. Remember, the table has been empty up to this point. So the form just makes it look prettier and more user friendly, okay, instead of going to the table. So I'm ready to input this first record just at the end. Maybe they don't owe any money. Um, use the enter key. And you see how it automatically here tells you what record you're on. This is record 2 of 2. Okay. So I could then go and add another record. Let's see, 3, 6, 9. Okay. And I have another John R. Smith. And I'm going to put him at 4 Oak Ridge Trace. And I have no idea. I'm just making this up. So they live very close to one another. Okay. And they have similar numbers, right? And maybe they both showed up on the same day for 7/27. I don't know if I put 21 or 27 on there, but so this is how you would know, um, which customer is which or which member is which, right? Is by that unique number, member ID. All right. So let's go into the table and take a look at the 2 new members that we've added. And it's just as simple as that. You see, there's 2 separate records. They've pretty much got the same exact name, but what separates them is that member ID number. Okay. And of course, their address is a little different. Okay. But one owes 50 and one owes nothing. Okay. So that's in the table. And no, I don't want to save the changes to the layout. Anytime you change the width of columns in Excel or in Access, it's going to prompt you to save changes. So just be aware of that. Okay. So this is just how you would create a simple database. Okay. Of course, this is not all, but it's a start. All right. And then as long as you have a table, which a database that is in use by a company or business is going to have multiple tables. Okay. So Access is a very, the databases that you create with Access are considerably small databases when you think about the scope of a business or an organization, but you could have over 2,000 tables in a database, okay, in a single database. So, that's definitely possible. But if you have a data source, okay, From that data source, you can then create queries, forms, and reports. Okay, so what does a report look like? Okay, basically, you've already experienced what reports look like. All right, when you get a class schedule, when you sign up for classes and you get a class schedule from your academic advisor, and they tell you, okay, well, here's all the classes that I helped you to sign up for next semester. That class schedule is a report from the PeopleSoft Campus Solutions database. Okay. Likewise, if you get an LG&E bill, um, any bill really, you can get it from AT&T, Verizon, Cricket, Sprint, any of those mobile phone carriers. If you get a bill, your bill is a report from their database. So you've already been interacting with reports. Um, you've already been, interacting with forms. You use google.com, you use yahoo.com, right? Any website that you go to where you can search on that website for information, you are using a form, and that form is basically whenever you search by keyword or key phrase, you're completing a query. So you're already doing this stuff. It's just no one ever explained it to you that you've been doing it. Okay. So I'm going to close the members form here, and I'm going to make sure that members TBL is selected. And then I'm just going to click on report. Okay. And a report is just going to list out what already resides in your table. Okay. Now you can create reports from queries as well. So, just know that you can, it has to be a data source. Um, so of course I would have to save it. Yes, I don't want it to be TBL because I already have something labeled TBL on there, right? Um, and this is a report. So short for report would be RPT. Okay. So it's going to be in its own little section. All right. Now, what if I wanted to create a query? All right. So again, using the members table, I would go to the create tab, and in the queries group, I could select query wizard, which basically helps you or walks you through um, setting up a query. But query design is so much easier. But, you know, we'll definitely walk through the query wizard. Okay. So, what kind of query do you want to create? That's basically what this first little screen is asking. So, I just want to keep it there on Simple Query Wizard. Click OK. And it's saying, okay, what tables do you want to use? And in those tables, what fields do you want to use? Okay, so you can use multiple tables if we had multiple tables. I only created one. So if I wanted all of the fields, I could just simply um, choose the first one. Well, it's already selected for us. Hold the shift key down and go, let's see if that works. No, it won't let us do it. So typically in Windows, if you select something, say for instance in File Explorer, and you want to select multiple files, you can select the first one, hold your shift key down on your keyboard, and select the last one. And that will select everything in between. Okay. But it's not letting us do that. So let's see if we can select. Okay. So the little controls here, the one with the double arrow, takes all the fields from the available fields list and puts it over into the selected fields list. So if I use this one, it would put them all back. Now, this one, the single one here, allows me to get a single field at a time. Okay, like member ID. So maybe I don't want all, maybe I just want some. Okay. So first name, middle initial, last name, and that's all I want, right? Then I click next. And then what title do you want to use for your query? Of course, it puts query on the end there, but I don't want TBL to appear. So I'm just going to use QRY. Okay. And I'm going to click finish. So it's going to show me exactly what I just asked for, the exact information. Member ID, first name, middle initial, last name. Okay. And so you might be like, well, what use is that? Well, you wouldn't initially see it, right? Just with this result, but you can see that it's in datasheet view, okay? Or in the same view as a Microsoft Excel worksheet, okay? With columns and rows. Now, if I go into the design of the query, okay, we see now we've created a table, a query, a form, and a report. But if we go into the design of a query, I'm just going to right click on the query and select design view. Now remember that the amount owed, one of the John Smiths owed $50, right? So I'm just going to click on amount owed. And you see how it automatically puts a check mark here where it says amount owed? I'm going to uncheck that because what that means, that is called the show row, okay? Meaning if it has a check mark, it's going to show on our results. But I don't want it to show for this field on our results. Instead, what I want it to do is I want it to sort even further and look for the individual that owes money. Okay. So I'm going to say where I don't know what the amount would be, but maybe it's more than $1. Okay. So greater than $1 in the amount owed field. So let's see if it'll take that. Okay. Data type mismatch in criteria expression. Huh. So let's see if equals changes it. Nope. So that wasn't the problem. Maybe get rid of the 1.00 and the dollar sign. Run, and that did it. Okay. So it gave us the member ID to the one for the amount owed that was more than $1. Okay. So 189,776,366. So let's look in the members table. 366 would be the one that owed more than $1 in the amount owed field. So, do you see how you can potentially search for more information from a set of data? Okay. So, that's basically what a query does. Okay. And the only way that you're going to become more familiar with queries is to actually do queries, different types of queries. Okay. So I could, for this query, instead, I could say in design view, instead of greater than one, I could say what is the amount owed? Question mark and in brackets, okay, in square brackets. So if I did this, what's going to happen is access this query is going to prompt me for an amount, and then it's going to give me a result. Okay, so if I click run, it comes up in this little box and it says, what is the amount owed? So I'm going to type in 0, because remember, we have two records. One where John R. Smith owes nothing or 0, and then one where John R. Smith owes $50. Okay, so if I click on 0, it's going to give me the John R. Smith that had the 0. How do I know that? There's that member ID number, so 955, and voila, the second record here owes nothing. So you can see how the query is helping me to find exactly what I need. Okay, so if I needed to do that again, I could go into the query, right click and select design view. Okay, and I could add additional criteria, okay, based on other fields, or I could leave it the same. And when I open that query, it's going to prompt me immediately for that amount owed. So I could then type in 50, right, to sort through the records. And if you can imagine, of course, it doesn't make that big of a difference when it's just 2 records. But if you can imagine 200 records, or 2,000, or even 200,000 or 2 million records that it's sorting through, and it's going to give me those results in a flash. Okay, but I'm searching for 50 in the amount owed field. All records that have 50 in the amount owed field, and it gives us the correct one. How do I know that? Verifying it on the table, and there it is, $50 for this ending in 366, and there's 366 on the query. So Access knows what it's doing when you create queries and you create criteria for queries. So you just have to get in there and sort of kind of play around with it. All right. So I know this is like so different from anything that you've ever done before, but where would we be without new experiences, right? So this excites me. I don't know about you, but I like learning new things. And the fact that you're looking at this video lets me know that you're at least a little curious, and it's going to excite you as well. All right. So the whole point is not just learning how to do it, but the why of why you would need to know how to create a database. All right. And the good thing about it is, if you know how to create a database, that is just one more selling point for an employer to hire you. Okay. Employers want to have employees who know how to think critically and to how to perform. Okay. With that skill set. So good luck to you in this unit, and I hope that this video has been of some help for you. And if you have any questions, of course, Troy is your dedicated tutor. Troy and I for you to help you learn about how to create or develop databases. Okay, so I look forward to hearing from you.